This is Alexandra Levine, guest hosting for WCBM. What a wonderful morning it is. Today is February 29th. It is leap year. Leap year, everyone. It comes once every 4 years. I want to know from you if you were born on February 29th, and how do you celebrate your birthday when it happens once every 4 years? That is just the question that I was asking myself this morning. So if you were born on February 29th, call us right now, 410-922-6680. That's toll free, 1-800-922-6680. I want to know, you were born February 29th, you're 1 day old, what happens the next year? And also, I want to know from the mothers who had babies on February 29th, how do they celebrate the birth of their child every single year? Do they celebrate February 28th? Do they celebrate it March 1st? It's so exciting to know that this is a leap year once every 4 years. So hello again, my name is Alexandra Levine. Just a small little background about myself. I was born in Sarasota, Florida, born and raised. I started in politics in 2015. I volunteered for President Trump. I was a faith leader, a national faith leader for President Donald J. Trump, with the Jexit movement, Jews exiting the Democratic Party, also combats anti-Semitism, the persecution of Christians and other minorities. I also was a field director for Governor Ron DeSantis, when he ran for governor in 2018 and then his re-election campaign in 2022. And I've just been in the political circuit, for a long time, thanks to President Donald J. Trump. So enough about me. So we're going to go into discussing CPAC. I want to know if there was people on the show that went to CPAC. Again, please call in 410-922-6680, toll free 1-800-922-6680. And it was a jam-packed day. It was literally a week ago on Thursday. I was there Thursday, Friday, and then Saturday when the president spoke. And one of the main topics was combating anti-Semitism on college campuses. It's a big topic here, and we see that a lot going on. One of the biggest things that I did when I went to CPAC is I had a custom-made dress for me. And I had the Israeli flag literally sewn on the front of my dress. And I did that as a symbol to say, we support Israel, we stand with Israel. Israel is our biggest ally. We must work with them. We must support them. And I had massive pictures taken. I had 2 photographers following me. If you're actually one of those people that have the pictures of me, please Facebook me on Alexandra Levine, Instagram me at ARLevine85. Also tweet me at Alexandra Levine, LEVI20. I'd love to see some of those interviews. I'd love to see some of those pictures that were taken of me. But I didn't do that to flash. I didn't do that to get notoriety. I did that because I want to show that Israel and the United States work simultaneously, hand in hand. And that was one of the biggest things that we talked about at CPAC. Another thing is President Trump's speech. If you've never been to a Trump rally, if you've never been to a Trump event, I recommend you all going. And President Trump is actually having a big rally this Saturday in Richmond at 6 p.m. I recommend getting there early because the lines are always to, Uranus or to Pluto because they go all the way down the corridor and around. But it shows the realness of the man and how human he is. And he went into detail about his flight to Afghanistan on Thanksgiving. And when you go on a flight, usually right as you're landing, the lights come on. They say, please secure your seatbelt, put your tray table on, or put your tray table up, make sure that your chair is in the upright position. If you're making out with the person next to you, please stop because we're getting ready to land. Please put your electronics aside. But he describes how he's going down and he's landing in Afghanistan, and the plane is pitch black. He thought this was the end of his life, honestly. That's what he said. He was so vulnerable in that moment, and the American pilots who he said are the best in the world, and they are. They were saying, we're going down 600 feet, 500 feet, 400 feet, 300 feet. Mr. President, are you okay? And he's like, yeah, sure, I'm fine. And he's saying he's sweating and he's like, trying to, look like a strong man, like he's okay, but he's like scared out of his mind. And all of a sudden 100 feet. And then they land and they're like, we landed, Mr. President. And he's like, what? He didn't even feel it. He said, that's how great the American pilots are. He didn't even feel it as he's flying in this pitch black airplane, and he's been flying in airplanes pretty much his entire life. But it shows that the man has vulnerabilities. It shows that the man is human. It shows that he is one of us. And when you see him and when you go to these rallies and the events, he talks directly to you. He doesn't talk around. He doesn't talk above you. He talks directly to you, and you feel like you've been his friend for 20 years, which is what I really love about him. I've been to a lot of Trump rallies. I've been VIP at a lot of Trump rallies, and he's just a wonderful, wonderful human being. And that's why it's really good for everybody to go to these events and go to these rallies. What I really loved is after he spoke for about an hour and a half on Saturday. He was supposed to speak at noon. He didn't get on stage till 2. He only had an hour and a half to speak, and then he had to fly down to South Carolina for the primary, and then he had a big party down there, because he knew that he was going to be victorious in South Carolina. And what he did to former Governor Nikki Haley, I mean, it was a shellacking. And then he did another shellacking the other night in Michigan. But as he's backstage, the president of Argentina is coming up to speak. And President Trump is a very hard act to follow. And the president of Argentina, he spoke an hour after President Trump. But I think it was the first time that the president of Argentina met President Trump, and there's a viral video out there, and he enters backstage, and the president of Argentina sees President Trump, and he embraces him with like such emotion. You can maybe see some tears coming down the president of Argentina's face, and he's like, "Oh my God, President Trump, I love you. Thank you so much for everything you do. I do the MAGA movement. I love MAGA." And instead of saying "Make America Great Again," he changed it to "Make Argentina Great Again." And he wanted President Trump to say that as they were taking pictures. "Please, President Trump, please say "Make Argentina Great Again." And he did. President Trump said it twice. But just the love in that room, the support. And the president of Argentina, he wanted President Trump to take pictures with him, which he did. And President Trump said, "Thank you to the president of Argentina. You're doing a great job." And the president of Argentina said, "Mr. President, we can't wait till you get back in the White House. There's so many wonderful things that we are looking forward to doing with you." And that's what we want from our leader. When we have a president of the United States, we want them to be embraced and to be loved by our foreign leaders. And the president of El Salvador was there. He spoke very well of President Trump. There was an ambassador to Budapest, Hungary there, who I met at CPAC Shabbat. He loved President Trump. So that's what we want. We don't want a Joe Biden who goes to Israel and calls the prime minister of Israel a freaking a-hole. It's horrible. And he said it multiple times. That is not what we want from our leaders. We want our leaders to embrace each other, to work together. We don't want any animosity, especially when you're going to see Prime Minister Netanyahu and you're going to Israel, and Israel's our biggest ally, and you're saying such horrible things about Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu in his face and even behind his back. So that's the big difference between President Trump and Joe Biden. And that's one of the reasons why a lot of the American people want President Trump back in office, because of the friendship and the love that a lot of these foreign leaders have for him. You know, we have to remember that President Trump, as a businessman, he did a lot of things overseas, and he owns a lot of businesses overseas. So he's very connected with a lot of these foreign leaders. And it's very, very important. It's very important that we have a commander-in-chief that is supported by our foreign leaders, that is loved by our foreign leaders. And we see the president of Argentina, we see the president of El Salvador, the ambassador to Budapest, Hungary, say, "We're tired of socialism, we're tired of communism, it's capitalism, we want to put our countries first." And that's really, really important. And again, that's President Trump's doctrine. President Trump's doctrine is America first. That is his doctrine, is America first. So that was, again, one of the main themes going back to the anti-Semitism on college campuses. You know, one thing about me is I've been doing rallies and events all over the DMV area. And the first event that I did was in Frederick County with the Frederick County Conservative Club in Baker Park. That's for Fred Profiter and Seth Eisenberg. And we put that event together in like 10 days. And there was so much love and so much support. And we had people coming from not just Frederick County, from all over the state, from Washington County, from Baltimore County, Baltimore City, Howard County, Harford County, Cecil County. They were all there in support of Israel. And that's what needs to happen. And I happened to be at CPAC Shabbat, and I'll elaborate more on this. We had Mark Levin there. We had two people from the Israeli Knesset there. And they said that we really, really need to step it up. Jewish people need to step it up. Christians need to step it up. We need to step up our support for Israel, because if not, the enemy wins. And the biggest takeaway I can say to our young people is don't be afraid to practice your religion. Wear that Jewish star with pride, wear that kippah with pride, wear that cross with pride, go to church, go to synagogue. It's so important because when you take the mezuzah down from the doorpost of your home, which is the symbol of Judaism, the enemy wins. The enemy doesn't want you to have religion. Hamas doesn't want you to have religion. We have to say no. We really have to say no. And we actually have a caller right now. Terrell is a Democrat. He says, what about the bad Trump? We have Terrell in Owings Mills. We're going to bring him in right now.
Yes, hello?
Hi, how are you, Terrell? Thank you so much for being on. I'm Alexandra Levine. Thank you.
Okay, you talk about Hamas and Israel. And I'm talking about, you talk about some of the good things and bad things about Donald Trump. Now, you hear Hamas rape women. Donald Trump raped a woman. Donald Trump had sex with a porn star. You know, Donald Trump he stole from people. You know, he talk about black people. I mean, you know, now he talk about he wants to sell $400 tennis shoes in the black community. He wants the black community to wear his T-shirt with a mugshot. And another thing, he wants you to send him $2. He's going to send you $2, and he's asking you to send him $20. So the man, I don't understand him. Do you understand what he's doing? Do you understand that he's broke?
I can tell you right now, you know, there is some false reporting that are going on in terms of President Trump. I know in the E. Jean Carroll case, he actually was not found for raping the woman. I remember that case very well.
He was what now?
He was found. He was not. They did not accuse him. They did not accuse him of rape.
Did he sexually assault the woman?
Again, you have to go into the law of that. You have to go into the cases of that.
Oh, go into the case. Okay. So what I heard on the news is fake news about what the judge said. The judge called him a rape. The judge said he raped a woman. Is that true?
I can tell you based on what I've read and based on what I heard is that they actually said that President Trump did not rape the woman. That was in the court of law. That actually was said in the court of law. I'm not an attorney though, so I can't go further into that. But that's what they said in the court of law. And if you remember, E. Jean Carroll actually went on Anderson Cooper and she said, quote, "Rape is sexy."
Rape is, come on.
That's what she said. That's what she said on air on Anderson Cooper on CNN.
Okay, that was on the news. But in the court of law, the judge said that he raped the woman. Okay, so what are you going to say about that? This is what the judge said, not me. You know, and then another thing. You know, what about the tennis shoe thing? I mean, how much money does Donald Trump have? Do we know how much? He said he was worth $400 million. That's what he had in cash. So now he has a bill for $355 million, and he can't pay it. So what's up with that, babe?
Well, the reason that President Trump did the sneaker line is because, as you know, the judgment came down on him that he can't do any business in New York for about 3 years, and that's where a lot of his income came from. And President Trump knew in the back of his mind that was going to happen, so that's why he did the sneaker line in Pennsylvania, because he can still do business in Pennsylvania. And it's really interesting. I think I'm glad that you brought up the sneaker line, because the sneakers sold out within hours. The guy made $400,000 within 3 hours. I think that's very impressive. I saw the sneakers online. I think that's very impressive.
I'm going to tell you what. Donald Trump was here in Baltimore, right? You remember when he was here in Baltimore?
Yes, I do. Okay. Yes, sir.
So he was down there looking at, they had rats running all over the daggone city. They had rats everywhere. As a matter of fact, his son-in-law owns communities in Baltimore County where rats are on board. Okay? So he had a chance to do something for the rats in the city, but he come here and he talks. See, Donald Trump is a talker. He don't do anything. Joe Biden is a doer. He didn't build the wall. He didn't repeal Obamacare. Joe Biden came in and got an infrastructure bill done in 2 years. So I know you love Donald Trump, but Donald Trump is going to lose. Like, you know what Joe Biden said about him last when they were running together? Joe Biden said, "I'm going to beat him like a drum." And guess what Joe Biden did? Do you know what Joe Biden did?
Educate us, sir.
Where's Donald Trump? Where's Donald Trump, miss? Where's Donald Trump?
Well, sir, we actually have to cut in about a minute. Thank you so much for your opinions and for your insight. We really appreciate it. We really appreciate callers like you. Thank you so much, Terrell. Thank you. Well, that was very enlightening. We actually have on hold with us Max in Owings Mills. Max, you're with Alexandra Levine, guest hosting on WCBM.
All right, here's the situation, okay? Here's the real situation. The people that gave him the loan have an obligation to look at the records, to have an obligation to look at the building and stuff like that and do an assessment on it, an appraisal on it. That's their job. If they didn't do it, they're the ones that are wrong. They gave him the money. If anybody should have to pay the bills for that, it should be those people. They should lose their jobs, and that's what should happen, because anybody can write anything on a sheet. These guys shouldn't be giving loans out to people unless they inspect the place, especially when it says it's a certain amount of money that's really high. That's what happened when I bought my first house.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. I love that. It's very insightful.
They're going after him. And if I was a stockholder in those companies or anything like that, I'd be suing them big time. It'd be a class action lawsuit on top of it, because I'd say, what was your job? You just hand money out to anybody? Hey, I'm worth $1 trillion. Give me $1 trillion.
Well, I can tell you that Mar-a-Lago is worth a lot more than $18 million. I've been to Mar-a-Lago many times. So they totally did not price that property as it is. It's not worth $18 million. It's worth a lot more, that I can tell you.
I'm sure that one is. But if you look at the properties in New York and everything else and the money that they gave him, it's not his fault. It's the fault of the people. Before they give you anything, they're supposed to check into it. If you get life insurance, they want to know your medical condition, they want to know the other things, and then they'll give you how much you have to pay every month. It's the same thing for buildings.
So we're actually going to be hitting on break, but I'm glad that you mentioned that, because we're bringing somebody at the bottom of the hour. He actually sells life insurance for a living. He is a licensed financial advisor, so we'd love for you to listen in, because he's coming in on the break. So coming up next on WCBM, we're going to be hearing from a licensed financial advisor, Richard Levine, based out of Sarasota, Florida. He's a native Washingtonian. You don't want to miss it. Hey, we're back. This is Alexandra Levine, guest hosting for WCBM, Talk Radio 680 WCBM. We have a great guest coming at the bottom of the hour, licensed financial advisor Richard Levine, based out of Sarasota, Florida. He actually is a native Washingtonian. He's been doing taxes, financing for a long time. Tax season is here, so if you need any help with your taxes, we're going to have Richard Levine on right after the break. But you know, going back to before, so one of the biggest things I was going to mention, I'm going to mention, going back to President Trump, is that President Trump was actually, breaking news, disqualified from the Illinois ballot for the primary. So this is the third state, folks, the third state where they're trying to remove President Trump from the ballot. And of course, President Trump knew this was coming. He's got his people on there. They're going to appeal. His attorney, Alina Habba, is right on it. She's a personal friend of mine. And this was on Reuters. An Illinois state judge on Wednesday barred President Trump from appearing on the Illinois Republican presidential primary ballot because of his role in the insurrection on the U.S. Capitol on January 6th. Again, they throw this out there. They throw the 14th Amendment on here, saying that President Trump is an insurrectionist. When was President Trump convicted? Was he convicted of being an insurrectionist? Was he? Because I haven't heard it. I haven't read it. Going back to Hamas, you know, we had a pro-Hamas huge rally in D.C., and they were banging on the gates of D.C. They were throwing these, like, baby dolls. They took the clothes off the baby dolls. They were throwing them over the gates. Isn't that considered insurrection? Aren't those insurrectionists? BLM? A lot of people say that they were insurrectionists. But as we remember, President Trump said, we have to peacefully protest here. And then when he saw that things were going on havocly at the Capitol, he said to the people, you know, we're not like this. We do not destroy. Go home. You know, just go home, because a lot of bad things are going to happen if you stay here. And he was right. And because of that, as a result, we have a lot of innocent people that are in jail right now in D.C. because of January 6th. And that was January 6th, 2021. So, again, Illinois state judge, Wednesdays, barring Donald Trump. And then we got the state of Colorado. They were the first, and then Maine afterwards. And a lot of these judges, you know, these were Biden-appointed judges, or excuse me, Obama-appointed judges. I say Obama-Biden, and then Biden-Obama. It's the same administration. It's Obama 3.0. They're there. I mean, they're there. And it's really sad what they're trying to do to this man. And we know in the back of our minds they're going to win the appeals. And I think the primary in Illinois is March 19th. So that's why they're trying to do this. They're trying to get him off right before the primary ballot so he can't be on, because the man just keeps winning. The man did a huge shellacking in Iowa, and it was one of the coldest days of the year in Iowa. The man comes back in New Hampshire, does a shellacking. That was an open open primary. Nikki Haley thought if she got a bunch of Democrats to vote in her favor, that would help. Then he goes into South Carolina, into Nikki Haley's hometown state, and shellacks her. Just shellacks her. And then and then he wins in Nevada, and then he goes to Michigan a couple days ago, shellacks her again. He won 60%, and she only got like 29% or 39%. I mean, the numbers are just astronomical. The support for President Trump nationwide is just astronomical, depending on party, regardless of party. And I talked to a lot of Democrats too, and they're starting to see the change. So it's very, very important that we look at what's going on here and how our judicial system's being messed up. Again, we're coming back at the bottom of the hour with a guest, Richard Levine. He is a licensed financial advisor based out of Sarasota, Florida. He's from the Washington, D.C. area. You won't want to miss it. But it's going to be a great half hour with Richard Levine. And when he comes back up at the top of the hour, we're going to give a little bit of introduction to him. And again, tax season is coming up. And don't forget to call in. Our number is 410-922-6680. Toll-free number, 1-800-922-6680. We'll be right back. Hi, this is Alexandra Levine, guest hosting for WCBM. We have on our hotline our first guest, Richard Levine. Richard Levine is of the Potomac Group of Financial Companies, chairman of the board. Mr. Levine is a registered financial consultant, Life Underwriter Training Council fellow, registered tax return preparer, we talked about taxes earlier, and former multi-year top of the table and the member of $1 Million Roundtable. Mr. Levine has been a financial professional since 1975, born and raised here in the Washington, D.C. area. Thank you so much for being on, Mr. Levine, calling from Sarasota, Florida.
Good morning. How are you, Alexandra?
I'm doing great. So you're originally from the Washington, D.C. area, and you moved to Florida years ago. What propelled you to move?
Well, I was asked to take a managerial role with a company called John Hancock Mutual Life Insurance Company, which brought me from the Washington, D.C. area to Sarasota, Florida back in 1978.
That's great. So I remember you telling me you were a Democrat at age 18, and then you #Jexited the Democratic Party, became a Republican. What made you make the switch?
I would say the election of Richard Nixon in 1972, I voted for him, and then I voted again for President Ford in 1976, and when we moved to Florida, I had to get what's called a domicile citizenship in the state of Florida, and they asked me for voter registration, and that's when I changed from Democrat to Republican in 1978.
So, Mr. Levine, as a tax preparer and a financial professional, do you see people making less money now than ever, and has inflation really affected the economy and everyday life?
Well, some people are making more money, some people are making less money. There's a lot more people today that are stressing compared to, let's say, 5 or 7 years ago. And inflation is hurting certain people in our economy, especially the lower middle class and the middle class. They see rises in costs having to do with food, energy, also insurance. Could be auto insurance, homeowners insurance, property tax increases. So they have less disposable income, and there are many, many families right now that are stressed. In fact, there was a report that about 70% of the families in this country live paycheck to paycheck, which is not very good.
And also, Mr. Levine, as a financial professional, how do we stop the inflation and lower the national debt? I know you're very involved in national politics as well. I know you're very big into watching Fox Business and so forth and the Bloomberg Report.
Well, there's a phrase that goes like this: there's never no inflation, and you certainly don't want to get into an economy that has deflation. But we did get a report earlier today having to do with what's called the PCE, which is a favorite index and monitor for the Federal Reserve Bank of the United States. And it shows that there is disinflation in the economy. The headline PCE, which includes food and energy, was only up 2.4% from a year ago, and the core PCE, which excludes food and energy, was up 2.8 a year ago. So that's what's sending stock futures up this morning, because it met Wall Street's expectations, and it shows that there is a more tamer inflation factor. Now, of course, the Fed likes to monitor at 2%, and we're getting down there, I guess. but there is some disinflation in the economy at this time. So this was a very good report.
So switching to national issues, Mr. Levine, the U.S. Senate just passed a $95 billion bill giving more aid to Ukraine, some aid to Israel, and aid to Taiwan. How does funding these wars affect our economy?
Well, first of all, the Senate passed it, but the House hasn't. So it cannot become law unless both houses of Congress do pass the bill, and then it gets to the president's desk for a signature. So it's not into law yet. But the big issue that the House Republicans have is securing our southern border and securing our northern border. And they want to see that done first before more money goes overseas to Ukraine, Israel, Taiwan, and other countries. So that's where the holdup is right now. Plus the fact, I think Congress is running toward another CR, continuing resolution, to fund our government, which will happen probably by Friday of this week.
Now, do you believe that the House should separate the three bills instead of putting them all together, separate money to Ukraine, money to Israel, money to Taiwan, instead of lumping them all together, and then, of course, putting in funding for our southern border, or talking about putting in money to close the border?
Well, the way Congress works, the two houses have to reconcile the same bill. So there's such disagreement right now, I don't know if anything's going to be done, to be honest with you. But of course, the Senate Republicans with the Senate Democrats on a bipartisan basis would love to lump all of it together with the House and then get it passed. Maybe, who knows, they would pass something that is well in excess of $100 billion. Who knows what they're going to do. So it's still a big question mark.
So going back to the issue that we have at home, our gas prices are now up to $4 to $6 a gallon unleaded. Under President Trump, we had gas prices at $1.26 unleaded, $1.36. We had that in 2018 and 2019. How do we get back to that?
It's a supply-demand situation. We have supply and we have demand. And what happens is this. If you cut the supply and the demand is still high, you have rising costs. If you have an oversupply and a lesser demand, then you have a lower cost. But the fact of the matter is, just take these two examples. If gas was $2 a gallon and now it's $3 a gallon, that's a 50% increase. That's inflationary. And that's what hurts homeowners, citizens' pocketbooks. It's that simple.
Now, was there ever a time where there was no inflation?
Yes, there were times where the United States did experience deflation. In fact, right now, the People's Republic of China are experiencing deflation, which is not good. But during the 1930s in the United States, during our Great Depression, we did have deflation. And that's why we had an actual 25% unemployment rate in 1937, 38, and 39.
Now, I was just with the ambassador to Budapest, Hungary at CPAC Shabbat a week ago. They still go by their current currency, the florence. As you know, European countries go by the euro, but Hungary is one of those countries in Europe that still goes by the original currency. I actually said to the ambassador of Hungary, please don't go to the euro. Please stay in the florence. Please stay in your original currency. And now we're switching to other things that are going on in the digital world. Is there a competition between the U.S. dollar and the world?
Well, let's talk about Europe for a moment. Of course, they have the EU, which is the European Union, and many countries in Western, Southern, and Eastern Europe are a part of that. But not every country uses the euro as their currency, like Hungary has the forint. Poland has their own currency also. But the euro is basically off the Deutschmark prior to, I believe it was 1999. So the euro never was a currency of Great Britain either. They always kept the British pound. So the euro was supposed to be a competitive currency to the United States dollar. However, for all these years after World War II, the U.S. dollar has been the world's currency reserve. And of course, we have the SWIFT system for payments and the BIS and so forth. But as the world is disconnecting today, you have upstarts, like you have the BRICS nations, and that also includes Saudi Arabia now. BRICS is Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Now it's Saudi Arabia and other countries. And it will take a while to see a competition against the U.S. dollar. It's not there yet, but there are countries like Russia and China using their own currencies for payments. And they're not really relying on the U.S. dollar. But even in today's currency scenario, oil is still priced in petrodollars, which is the U.S. dollar. And of course, when you've got 80 to 85 million barrels a day going across the world, the U.S. dollar is still dominant in the world currency system.
Now, in your opinion, Mr. Levine, do you think that Hungary should stay with the florins, or do you think that they should eventually move to the euro, in your opinion?
I don't think they're going to move to the euro anytime soon, to be honest with you. I think they're going to keep their currency, just like Poland.
Now, you're a tax preparer for the IRS, so you're dealing with tax returns all day and all night. What are the biggest things that you see that you can kind of talk about when you are looking at a tax return? Again, we focused on, are people making less money now? Are they making more money now? What do you see happening?
Well, I'll give you an example having to do with senior citizens. They get Social Security benefits. And a lot of my clients have to give back as taxable income part of their Social Security benefits because of a formula that was put together in the early 1980s by Dan Rostenkowski, who was the chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee back then, and they've never indexed it for inflation. So you have single as well as joint returns where sometimes 50 cents on the dollar or 85 cents on the dollar goes back as taxable income. Now, there's been some conversation in the House of Representatives to increase the wage base from $168,800 all the way to $250,000 and to eliminate taxation on Social Security benefits. I don't know if that'll ever pass, but there are some conversations about it. Now, prior to 1983, Social Security benefits were absolutely tax-free to the senior citizens. So, to me, when I look at a tax return, it's like phantom income. And it's like double taxation. But my clients are making more money, and they are paying more taxes. And I see that all the time. And that must be across the board because the last tax reform was in 2017. And when you lower the bracket, you increase revenue to the federal government. Now, how do I know that? Because the federal government has been receiving record amounts of federal income taxes, Social Security income taxes, Medicare income taxes, corporate income taxes, and of course you can add to that excise taxes and tariffs. So the United States is receiving somewhere in the area of $5 trillion of revenue from its citizens and its corporations. Record high revenue. The problem, of course, is that Congress is spending more money than what's coming in, and that adds to the national debt, which now exceeds $34 trillion.
So let's go into healthcare because you're in the healthcare profession. And when President Trump was first elected, former Speaker Ryan said, President Trump, we want you to start with healthcare first. We have a way to repeal and replace Obamacare. We're going to get into that later in the show with our other guests coming at the top of the 11 o'clock hour. But what do you see with the healthcare profession? Do you think it is very necessary to repeal and replace Obamacare to help your clients and to help people that want to be properly insured?
Well, the way Congress is constituted right now, they're not going to change anything having to do with the ACA or what they call Obamacare. So that's going to be still good law until you get a different configuration in both houses of Congress. And they're not going to be able to repeal the ACA at this time. So that's not even a thought. If there's a change where the Republicans have control of the House and the Senate in January 2025 and a Republican president, they could possibly repeal ACA and make it a whole different program. But it's not in the cards right now, Alexandra.
Now, just a couple of advice, because we have a lot of young people that are trying to invest. We have a lot of young people that are switching jobs. What advice can you give to our young people in regards to saving, starting a life with their loved one or their spouse, etc.?
Well, I always ask the question of young people, why do you go to work? And I get all kinds of answers, but the real answer is, I go to work to make money. And then I say to them, well, who do you pay first? Well, I get all kinds of answers, like I have to pay the mortgage, or I have to pay my rent, or I have to pay my car, I got to pay my phone. I said, no, that's all the wrong answer. You got to pay yourself first. So I always say, pay your first bills to yourself because you're the one who earned the money. Take the first 10% and give it to yourself. You have to save, and then beyond saving, invest. Invest for the long term. Then pay your bills, and if there's anything left over as surplus at the end, invest that money too. And then over time, you build wealth on a sustained basis, and you use compounded interest or compounded returns, and that's how people grow their wealth and their assets over time. So it's not timing a market, it's time in the market with compound interest. That's what makes wealth sustaining.
So, Mr. Levine, we have about 1 minute left. I'm going to give the last minute to you to talk about yourself, to talk about any messaging that you have for our young people, our investors, etc. Go for it.
I think young people should always be investors. They should always look for a total return on their money. They should try to always exceed the rate of inflation. So, for instance, if you think you're going to get 5% on your money, but you're running 6% inflation, you're actually losing. You're not winning. So you have to look at a total return approach. So if you can get 8 or 9 or 10% before tax and before inflation, you have a real rate of return. So the real key and success to one being an investor is getting a real rate of return after inflation and after taxation. Now, if you have a taxable 20% bracket and you make 10%, then you go from 10 minus 2 equals 8, minus 6 as inflation. And why do I say 6? Because in the last 3 years, inflation is running at 17.9%. So that's 6% a year. So 10 minus 2 is 8. 8 minus 6 is 2. That's the real rate of return. But then you say, well, if I receive only 2% real growth, how many years does it take to double my money? That's 36 years using the rule of 72. So you have to try to really, really take a good hard look at what your objectives are and what your goals are, and you have to place money for the long term in those particular asset classes.
Well, thank you so much, Richard Levine. Thank you so much. That, again, is Richard Levine with Potomac Group of Financial Companies, chairman of the board. Again, Levine is a registered financial consultant, life underwriter training counsel, fellow registered tax return preparer, and a former multi-year top of the table and $1 Million Roundtable. Thank you so much for coming on. And this is Alexandra Levine, guest hosting for WCBM Talk Radio 680. Don't forget to call us in at 410-922-6680. That's toll free, 1-800-922-6680. We're going to be taking a break, and we'll be right back at the top of the hour with an elected official. Hey, we're back. I'm Alexandra Levine, guest hosting for WCBM Talk Radio 680. Don't forget to give us a call. We're at 410-922-6680. That's toll-free, 1-800-922-6680. I know that we have a lot of people, not just in the Maryland area, but nationwide listening. We also have people from Israel listening today. I say in Hebrew, Am Yisrael Chai, which in Hebrew means peace be all to Israel, and Shalom Alechem, which means peace be to all. So thank you. Israel is 7 hours ahead of us. So we thank our Israelis. We thank our American Israelis for fighting over there and for listening. So one of the biggest breaking news that we had yesterday was that Mitch McConnell is deciding to step down as the Senate Minority Leader in November after the election. So I want to know your thoughts and your feelings about that. Why is he stepping down? Is it maybe because he had like mini strokes as he was being asked questions by the press corps in the Capitol? Is it maybe because, I don't know, a lot of people say his cognitive ability is not like it was 20 years ago. Is it maybe because he's been in office for, since dinosaurs were alive? I don't know, but Mitch McConnell is deciding to step down. There are some changes happening. And the question that I pose to you guys is, who do you think should be his replacement? There were some talks of U.S. Senator Rick Scott down in Florida, U.S. Senator Josh Hawley in Missouri, U.S. Senator Ted Cruz, and some others. And a lot of these guys are up for re-election. U.S. Senator Rick Scott's up for re-election. So is Ted Cruz. So is Josh Hawley. So is U.S. Senator Marsha Blackburn in Tennessee. She's also up for re-election. So who do you guys think would be a great replacement for Mitch McConnell? It's interesting how the changes are happening. And we're also going to get some changes in the RNC. After the South Carolina primary, the RNC GOP chairwoman, Ronna McDaniel, she announced that she is stepping down. They're going to have re-elections coming up in the next couple weeks. They said in March. And President Trump already put out a slate of who he wants. So right now he's suggesting Michael Whatley, who is now the North Carolina GOP chairman, as the RNC chairman to replace Ronna McDaniel, with his daughter-in-law, Laura Trump, as the RNC co-chair. So her and Whatley will be working together. And then this guy, Chris, is going to be the chief operating officer. And he was actually instrumental in stopping the Never Trumper movement in 2016 down in Cleveland at the convention. So we got some great people that President Trump wants to put into place, and that's going to be really exciting. So please stand by. Coming up at the top of the hour, we have an elected official. I have a segment called Phase Time with Tim Fazenbaker, elected official in Baltimore County with the Baltimore County Republican Central Committee.
Well, I've been working in a coal mine, going down, down. Working in a coal mine, like a slip down. Working in a coal mine, going down, down. Working in a coal mine, like a slip down.
Hey, we're back. I'm Alexandra Levine, guest hosting for WCBM Talk Radio 680. We have a special segment at the top of the hour called FaceTime instead of FaceTime, F-A-Z-E, FaceTime with elected official Tim Fazenbaker with the Baltimore County Republican Central Committee member. Thanks for coming on, Tim Fazenbaker, live.
Thank you, Alexandra. Digging the music. And I do first want to say it's great to hear you on air. For those who don't know, you are from Florida, and you've done a ton for the conservative movement in Maryland and across the country. But Maryland's happy to have you for the amount of time that you do stay here. So we want to steal you from Florida, but we'll take what we can get. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Tim. I really appreciate it. So we opened with the song Working at a Coal Mine. I know you do a lot of work up in Pennsylvania. You own homes up in Pennsylvania. So how are the coal miners doing right now?
Well, they're fighting an administration that doesn't care for them for political reasons. And you're seeing a lot of the old American ways being phased out deliberately, some because of technology, but we know that the administration and the left tends to look at certain American backbones as enemies, and they want to make sure that they continue to wipe them out and make them either dependent on the country or bring in a new America. As former Governor Martin O'Malley used to say, these new Americans, and that's what they prefer here. So I don't think there's any tears from this administration for the coal miners and the blue-collar workers across the state and across the nation. So best we can do is continue to fight for them.
So, Tim, we're going to get into the subject at hand about affordable housing. So this was reported February 20th. Governor Wes Moore testified before state lawmakers on Tuesday in support of bills that he said would address what he calls an affordable housing crisis in Maryland. So, as I mentioned earlier, Tim, you have homes all over the DMV area, Pennsylvania, Delaware, etc. Has affordable housing creeped into the areas where you own homes?
Oh, of course. The first question I always ask is, what gives anybody the right to invade on your property, your way of life? So, you know, I'm from the Dundalk area initially, and I live down in Sparrows Point. And the question that would be brought up about Dundalk is, you know, a lot of times, what would we do with the subsidies that we would have received from the feds or whomever? And Dundalk in that area and many other places around this state we would take that money, investing, helping our veterans, our elderly, and our disabled. Now we've been sued, and we have been told, no, you can't prioritize those classes of people. The left has a different perception of what the priority should be, and they will displace the people that live in your, say, more rural or suburban communities, your blue collar worker areas, and they're going to urbanize these areas. And you're seeing an article that they want 95,000 units placed and of low income or whatever it's going to be. My other question to that becomes, well, do we really have a housing crisis here in Maryland? Well, here in Baltimore County, we actually went backwards in our census. So we have thousands and thousands of apartments and homes that are available. Why do we need to do this? And that's something that we can uncover a bit more. But I ask you first, think about it. Is it right that if you live down the ocean, hon, or if you live in the mountains, or you live in northern Baltimore County, you live there because you enjoy that way of life? Is it right that the government can now force you to live in an urbanization type area when you move to those areas more likely because of the way of life that it is? And the answer is no, the government should not be doing that.
So let me ask you, Tim, why is the governor so adamant about pushing for affordable housing? And how does this help and hurt the communities where you live and where others live in the entire state of Maryland?
The governor's objective in this, like many on the far left, is really displace the people that are your traditional backbone of America, the people that are working hard, that want to live a quiet, peaceful life, and he wants to urbanize and basically create a voting bloc of the future for the left and their movement. So you have people that have been leaving Maryland. I mean, tons of my friends and family. I even left Maryland for a while, but I wanted to come back and raise my children where, I grew up in a sense and give them that sense of community belonging. But you have people that are just fleeing this state and they're moving to places like Florida because they know that it's more, it's a better environment typically than what they're pushing in places like Baltimore City. For years, myself and others have been working hard in Baltimore City to help develop a core of people down there that will stand up and know how to fight what's called the gentrification. And what they're doing is they want to make the city white again. They want to displace most of the people in the city in these low, rundown areas. They want those areas to be cheap so that they can step in and have their developer friends take that land and build them to something like Canton, where it's your high dollar, high taxation areas. And they want to push out what they consider the dregs into the surrounding counties. So Baltimore County, Carroll, Montgomery, Anne Arundel, all these counties are facing these same issues where they're becoming very urbanized.
But Governor Wes Moore, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
But Governor Wes Moore thinks that affordable housing will propel more people to stay in Maryland. He feels this will help our 19 to 27-year-olds who are single income families or single moms and dads. Why, again, is the governor saying to these young couples, the government's going to take care of you, it's okay? And he's, like you said, he's putting in $96,000 units shortage. How does this help our young people grow?
It doesn't at all. And like I said, it's a political ploy. And this kind of goes back to when Obama was president and the guy running HUD, it was Castro, fitting name for him. His emphasis was, and his direction was to create these communities where the government would get involved. And any time a community would be built, 10% of the homes had to be subsidized homes. Meaning, if you live in a $200,000 home community, 10% of those homes are going to be subsidized. If you live in a $2 million community, 10% of those homes are going to be subsidized. They want subsidized homes in every single community across the state and across this country. And it's been happening. And most of the counties in Maryland, it's already the case. That is on purpose designed to mix the communities and destroy the people's way of life that they want for themselves and their family. And it's dangerous. I mean, there's a correlation between low subsidized homes and crime. And people don't want to be around that. They want a better way of life. People don't want to live in rundown areas where there's crime and drugs and everything. They want to get away from that, and it's their God-given right that they should be able to.
So, Tim, I want to turn the focus to Fort Howard, because Fort Howard is a historic area that I know you've been extremely passionate about. That was one of the reasons why you ran for Congress in 2020, and I know you focused on that and trying to preserve Fort Howard. Isn't Fort Howard one of the places that they want to tear down and put in affordable housing?
Yeah, so Fort Howard is a historic site, land from the War of 1812. It has a veteran facility, hospital, everything down there, and it's dilapidated. It's been by design, leaving it there so that the land would become ruined. And there's only one other area in this country where that has happened at a veteran facility besides Fort Howard, and that is in Nancy Pelosi's district. And what they're doing is they want that land, and they want to put thousands and thousands of units down in Fort Howard. It is if you're not familiar with it, it's a small rural community, historic. There's some farmland down there, and they want that land for taxation reasons. They want to urbanize that entire area, and we have fought for years to stop this, and they are trying again to do this. The people of that land do not want this. There's an event tonight at Dundalk High School from 6 to 9 where we're going to be talking about this, about the rezoning area and the government's efforts in trying to step in and take that land. And the people have stood up for years, and they're going to do it again tonight and say, do not touch our land. This is designed for veterans. It should go back to veterans. It should not go to a 19-year-old person who needs subsidized homes. No, it needs to go to veterans first.
And isn't it true that you're testifying tonight? You're testifying tonight also?
I'll be speaking tonight, amongst others, in basically what I'm just saying now. It's this land is our land, and it's for the veterans, and that's what we want it to go to. One of the things that we face across this state is overpopulation in the schools, and they want to throw all these other homes down here. Well, what we're saying is, if you want to do anything with that land, give it back to the veterans and build a school down here, a school that has a magnet program tied into the veterans, a JRTC program or something where we can see the next generation following the steps of the previous generations who stood and fought for this nation. That's what America is about, not necessarily helping those for political advantage, but helping those that have helped us.
Well, I have a question, Tim, because there's been some speculation that outside investors from Texas, Florida, Oklahoma, they want to invest into saving Fort Howard. Is that possible?
It is possible. It's going to be very challenging because of the way that the government has done this type of contract and these deals. And because the government tends to win, the people tend to slow things down if they get involved, but they tend to win. But if we have enough funding and resources and people that want to put money into the veterans facility and bringing it back to what its real purpose is, we can step in and help save it and give it back to veteran support services. But we need people to really step up and help us give back to the veterans. And that's what we want, and that's what we should have, because it's our community.
So, Tim, we have just about 1 minute, and I want to bring up environmental issues because you were instrumental in stopping the toxic chemical water from East Palestine, Ohio to Back River. Can you give us the status of that situation? And do you think that Governor Moore will try to bring dirty water back to Maryland again, bring it into Back River?
So this is a very large topic that deals with the inadequacies of many organizations with, like, the Back River treatment plant, and the incompetency of the government in running a lot of these things. So we did get the water stopped initially from coming here, and the East Palestine water was the water that was in the train explosion in East Palestine, Ohio. They wanted to bring it to Baltimore. We got it stopped. We got it stopped with Republican and Democrat support. However, one of the things I said was, it will still come here, and it did, from my knowledge. It came in a different way. They had it treated somewhere else before they ended up coming back to Maryland and discharging it. So this is the type of stuff that you don't hear about, and your everyday person, they're conservative, they're blue-blooded, red-blooded Americans like us, but they don't know about these little things, and it's our job to make sure that when these issues come up, that we have to step in and inform as many people as possible. And we did that with that water, and we kept it from coming here. But there are many times when the government gets involved with organizations that bring stuff like that here, and we don't know about it, and it harms us. And we've seen it all over the country with with people polluting the water and the rivers and things like that. And look, our Chesapeake Bay is a beautiful treasure, and it's been destroyed for hundreds of years now. And we're trying to make sure that we have clean air and clean water, because conservatives want that exact thing, clean air and clean water. And we are fighting major forces that don't really care because they don't live here. And they think that, oh, well, put the problem there. It's not affecting me. And no, we need to stand up and say, well, it's affecting us, and we are Americans, and it's our community, and we're going to do something about it.
Well, I know that you are very strong on this issue, and I know that you have been talking to renowned environmentalists to come here to Maryland and take a look at the water and see what's happening. Thank you so much. We are having and finishing our segment FaceTime with elected official with the Baltimore County Republican Central Committee, Tim Fazenbaker. Thank you so much, Tim, for joining us this morning.
Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you. And just to follow up quick before we go to the break, we're focusing on Governor Wes Moore and the Renters' Rights Stabilization Act of 2024, House Bill 693, House Bill 599, and House Bill 538. And we are coming back at the bottom of the hour to talk exactly what Tim Fazenbaker was talking about in regards to the affordable housing. I'm Alexandra Levine, guest hosting for WCBM. We will be back. Hey, we're back. I'm Alexandra Levine, guest hosting for WCBM. We have Amy Wakehoff on the line from Montgomery County with a question. Hey, thank you for coming on to WCBM this morning, Amy.
Oh, hi. Glad to be here.
Awesome. What's your question?
Well, it's not a question. I just want to know whether people realize that yet another anti-police bill is being considered in the Montgomery County Council.
Can you talk a little bit more about that for some of our viewers who are not familiar?
Okay, well, Will Jawando wants to ban consent searches for the police. So people are allowed to, they're already constitutionally allowed to say they don't want to be searched for consent, asked to search their vehicle, but went during a traffic stop. But he wants to ban them entirely. And they cite examples of such a small percentage of those kind of searches result in confiscation of weapons and drugs. But there is a percentage that does result in the confiscation of weapons and drugs. And so, the other point is that this kind of legislation just makes the morale of the police plummet. We have a 370% increase in the number of vacancies in our police department in Montgomery County Police. It's national news that the plummeting morale in our county. And so the crime is increasing astronomically, and people are leaving.
So what would you like the Montgomery County Council to do? How can they stop this?
Well, they just need to not pass this bill. We were able to stop it last year. The STEP Act was the name of the bill last year that was going to totally get rid of all police searches. And Anthony Brown said, that wasn't constitutionally going to work. And so they narrowed it down to this. So they already, did all kinds of anti-police bills a few years ago. So now we really need to make sure that you stop it. People need to go on the website and submit their testimony. They have until March 7th to submit testimony. We already had the hearing the other night, and the people for this bad bill, outnumbered us 3-1. And we need to stop this in its tracks before they make a situation in Montgomery County even worse.
So, Amy, can you give our viewership information on how they can go on and testify?
Well, the hearing took place on the 27th, but until March 7th, they go on the Montgomery County Council website, and there's a link that says how to testify. You go on there.
Great.
And then within that site, you click on a button, and as long as you fill in your name and say that the hearing was on the 27th, and the bill is 224, the Freedom to Leave Act, and you can testify. You can submit your written testimony. Now, if you really don't like that, you can also email the county council members, and I'm sure that's right on the website too.
Yeah, I know Andrew Friedson personally, and a lot of these county councilmen are up for re-election, so they need to hear from their constituents on what's going on. Thank you so much, Amy, for being on and for giving us that information.
Sure.
Awesome. God bless. So that is such important information that Amy just gave. But going back to what Tim Fazenbaker said about this affordable housing, I want to know from the viewers, how do they feel about affordable housing coming into your area? And they're coming into really nice areas, by the way. Please give us a call. Call in at 410-922-6680. Toll free 1-800-922-6680. I can just educate the people a little bit on these bills. The Housing and Community Development Financing Act, it's called House Bill 599, would strengthen state financing tools for housing construction and community development investments. The bill would create the Maryland Community Investment Corp that would administer proposed federal funding to invest in low-income communities and community development projects across the state. And then we also have House Bill 538, which would address the state's housing supply by removing barriers to development. Again, it's government control. It's government controlling where you live. It's government controlling how much you spend. It's government controlling how much money you make. Why would any young person want to have government control? This goes against everything, goes against our Constitution. It's not right what Governor Westmore wants to do. And he wants to take beautiful areas like Fort Howard, for example, which is a historic area, like Tim Fazenbaker said, and just demolish it. Just demolish and demean it like it never happened. Just destroy our history. Just destroy our history. I've been to Fort Howard. If you haven't been to Fort Howard, I recommend everybody going. It is such a beautiful, beautiful preserve. Why would you want to put affordable housing there? And we forgot to touch on, but, Tim Fazenbaker is a father of 4. His kids go to school in Spurs Point Mill and Spurs Point High School. They got Section 8 over there. Do you enjoy having your kids go to school next to Section 8 housing? Or are you going to enjoy having your kids go to school and you're watching Section 8 housing going up? You don't know who's coming in there. You don't know who's going to be living there. It's dangerous. That causes high crime. Also, what affordable housing does is it kills the middle class. So people that their values, their home values are $400,000 to $750,000. Guess what? You put Section 8 housing, it devalues their home. It devalues their home. Also causes more high crime. Also causes a lot of problems. People are coming into your neighborhood. You don't know where they're coming from. There's a lot of illegals that are going to be possibly living in these Section 8 housing homes. That's what they've been talking about. This is a real problem. People need to take a stand. Show up tonight at Dundalk High School. Show up. Watch Tim Fazenbaker testify. Watch other people testify. Watch other constituents testify at Dundalk High School tonight at 6 p.m., 6 to 9. Hear the concerns of the people. Because this is important. Again, I'm from Sarasota, Florida. I saw Section 8 housing, affordable housing coming into Manatee County. We have somebody coming on our show later in the hour at 11:30 hour. She lives in Manatee County. She can tell you about affordable housing too. It ruins the area. It ruins your way of life. It ruins everything. It makes your area unsafe. We're going to take a break now. I'm Alexandra Levine. I am guest hosting for WCBM Talk Radio 680 WCBM. Right back at the hour. Hey, we're back. I'm Alexandra Levine, guest hosting for WCBM. We're still talking about the affordable housing issue. We have Adam on the line from Dundalk. Adam, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Hi, Alexandra.
Hey.
Hey, you're doing a great show filling in so far.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
So you're on the topic of affordable housing.
Yes, sir.
And I just want to put in my 2 cents.
Go for it. So
back a few years ago, I was looking into it, and I really think the change needs to come with landlord-tenant laws. It can take up to 6 months to kick out a tenant who is not paying their rent. And, that obviously, if you're a business person, you understand that if you're not getting income from something, you have to make it up in other ways. And, so if you can't remove a tenant, then it's going to cost more money for the people who are eventually going to move into, your house or apartment. Are you familiar with Maryland's landlord-tenant laws?
I am. And again, elected official Tim Fazenbaker really brought that up at the top of the hour.
Yeah, so I knew that from a neighbor friend of mine who, they were delinquent on payments, and it was an absolute nightmare taking their tenants to court, and that's another thing, lawyer fees, that all has to be paid for by the eventual renters. That could drive down the cost. Also, lately, and attention Baltimore County Public Schools, I've been looking into the demographic changes of Baltimore County, and it's not our imagination that let's just say the people who were in Baltimore County 20 years ago, it's not their children going to Baltimore County today. At least the majority aren't. And yearbooks and graduation videos back this up. When you have more people in any given area, that means there's less vacant properties. And that also means the price of mortgages, the prices of rent goes up. We do not need more housing. We need laws to be enforced at the federal level. Right now, the police's hands are tied by executive orders. It's not good. These are all policies that the politicians have put in place, and it has, I'll just say it, it's screwed Baltimore County. It's screwed Baltimore City. And also, I'll say the media have something to do with that. They do not want to be, come across as going against their sponsors. Will say the people that buy political ads that they're chummy with, that they're giving interviews at the Preakness, things like that. And it all comes down to money at the end of the day.
I 100% agree with you. I hope that you show up tonight at Dundalk High School and hear the testimony of Tim Fazenbaker, as well as many others. I know that you are a constituent of Mr. Fazenbaker, so he would be so happy and elated if you showed up for him tonight. But more people that live in your area and beyond need to show up tonight at Dundalk High School from 6 to 9 p.m. because this is something that's very important. I know that you've been to Fort Howard before because I remember seeing you do some videos and some commercials at Fort Howard. I know that you're a videographer in the Dundalk area and you do photography as well. And tell us a little bit about Fort Howard, Adam, just very quickly, how important that area is and how historic it is. Now, we can't have affordable housing there.
Well, first of all, it's a beautiful area on the water. It, like you said, it has great historical value. It was a part of the War of 1812. The fort wasn't around back during the War of 1812. It was built afterwards. But that area is where the British troops landed. Todd's Inheritance, which is a farm, that's where people saw the British coming. They warned the people of Baltimore, the people of North Point, that the British were coming, and to essentially strip the resources of that land where people have invested their life savings. These politicians do not care that the middle class has invested their life savings into their properties, and it's just going to be taken away by blight and overcrowding. And Tim Fazenbaker earlier talked about the schools being overcrowded. I mean, you're just going to add more and more and more people, more traffic. Yeah, it's great for the tax base, and that's what the politicians care about. But ultimately, it will destroy an area. It's not going to be the same quality of life, and ultimately the pursuit of happiness is what politicians should be about, but that's not what they are about.
Well, thank you so much, Adam Reuter, for coming on to the show and for giving us your great insight. Adam Reuter, great photographer, great videographer in Dundalk Sparrows Point area. Thank you so much. We hope to see you tonight at Dundalk High School at 6 p.m. Please.
Have a good morning, Alexandra.
Thank you so much, Adam. And again, this is a really hot topic. It's a very hot topic. Affordable housing affects everything. As I said before the break, I'm from Florida. I saw affordable housing entering Sarasota County and Manatee County, and how it ruined and destroyed some of the beautiful areas. It wasn't until Governor Ron DeSantis came in there and said enough is enough. We got to get the people back to work. We got to stop the government from taking over us and telling us what to do. That's socialism. That is socialism. Full government control. We are not based on that. We are not a socialist nation. President Trump has always said we will never be a socialist nation. Putting affordable housing into any area, a beautiful area, hurting the middle class, is just so horrible for the economy. And that's why people are leaving Baltimore County. That's why people are leaving the state of Maryland and coming to Florida and coming to Texas and coming to Tennessee, places where you don't have to pay state income tax. And also, what Tim Fazenmaker forgot to mention, I know this about him, is he's the president of his HOA, where he lives. So that also affects him, too, as the president of the HOA. So if you're a president of an HOA, please call us. Please give us a call, 410-922-6680, toll-free number 1-800-922-6680. I want to know if affordable housing affects you as an HOA president, as the head of your HOA. Because, again, the historic area of Fort Howard, our history is being taken away from us completely by Governor Wes Moore. And he doesn't care. He doesn't care. And that's what the sad part is. I hope everybody shows up tonight at Dundalk High School from 6 to 9 p.m. and they flood that school and listen to the testimonies. Because these bills, House Bill 599 and House Bill 538 and House Bill 693 should not be passed. It's just going to give a pathway to having God knows what coming into your area and affecting your children. Again, Tim Fazenmaker has 4 children. I know Adam Reuter has a niece and a nephew about the same age as Tim Fazenmaker's kids. I mean, this is not good for the community. It's not good for your children. If you're a 19-year-old, you don't want government control. You turn 18, you are considered legal. You have the right to decide your own fate, how you work, where you live. Honestly, I'd rather you live in your parents' house than live in affordable housing. Honestly. I mean, that's not what we want, but I'd rather have that. You don't want affordable housing creeping into your area. It ruins the economy in your area. And again, in the state of Maryland, we're a very heavy Democratic state. We're a 2-to-1 Democratic state. We need to rebuild. We need to rebuild. When a new administration comes in, they're supposed to either improve from the previous administration or either continue what the previous administration did and just carry it over. But now what Governor Wes Moore is doing is he's backpedaling and he's taking us back instead of progressing us. See, they say the progressives. Progressivism means to move forward, not to move backward. Governor Wes Moore is a retrogressor. And guess who's behind this with him? Obama, Biden, and a woman named Oprah Winfrey. Oprah Winfrey put Governor Wes Moore into office. She came to Maryland. Why would Oprah Winfrey, who's a billionaire, why would she come to Maryland to help put in Governor Wes Moore? Why? You all have to think about that. That is a question. I posed that to the audience. Does everybody know that Oprah Winfrey was here pushing Governor Wes Moore? What do you guys think about Oprah Winfrey coming in here? Give us a call, 410-922-6680. What do you think about this affordable housing and what Governor Wes Moore wants to do to the people? Again, toll-free number, 1-800-922-6680. I'm going to talk a little bit, I'm going to switch from affordable housing into something that I'm very passionate about. Speaking about testifying, I had the pleasure of testifying in Annapolis a couple weeks ago for HB 763, which removes CARE from the Anti-Hate Commission. Dr. Chandri from the Anti-Hate Commission, there was calls from the Attorney General to remove CARE from the Anti-Hate Commission. The fact that CARE was put on the Anti-Hate Commission is asinine to me and ridiculous. CARE is formed by a terrorist organization called the Muslim Brotherhood, based in Egypt, and then the Muslim Brotherhood was formed by Hamas, which we know is a terrorist organization which killed 1,200 people in Israel. They killed 31 Americans, and they still have Americans in hostage. And that is something that I will always combat, is anti-Semitism. I'm going to turn again. We have someone on the line about affordable housing, and I'm going to go back into combating anti-Semitism. We have live Jay, lives in affordable housing in the neighborhood. Jay in South Baltimore. Thank you for coming on the show, Jay. Jay, are you on? Oh. Nope. Okay, sorry about that. Maybe he'll call back in. So going back to what I was saying, so I literally testified from Annapolis to remove CARE from the Anti-Hate Commission because that's what needs to happen. Because again, CARE is formed by the Muslim Brotherhood, known terrorist organization. They're formed by Hamas, which is another terrorist organization. And that needs to be combated at every turn. We have another caller coming in talking about Governor Moore and Oprah, and then I'm going to go back to combating CARE. Chris from Timonium, come on in. You're on the show, Chris.
Hey.
Hi, how are you?
Nice job. It's good to hear you. I don't know what happened to Kim. I was out on a medical leave for a while and didn't listen. But anyway, Oprah Winfrey had her start here. That's probably why she wants to make... I think she might have been... I don't know if she was born here, but she got her start here in news and TV.
Well, what do you think about, Oprah Winfrey coming into Maryland, pushing Governor Wes Moore, shaking hands with him, raising a bunch of money from him? I mean, he came out of nowhere. Honestly, people thought that Peter Franchot was going to be the Democratic nominee for governor. What do you think about her coming in?
Ridiculous. She shouldn't be doing this kind of thing. It's the globalist way of life. That's what the problem is. They want to be, the globalist, these globalist politicians, and it's all coming, trickling down. Started with Obama, this, getting, a left wing more in here, and then, Obama's Affordable Housing Act. That was from way back. Ridiculous. It's horrible. I'm a Baltimore County property owner, and they should not be doing this mess.
Well, thank you so much for calling. We have another caller on the line. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it. We have Jay in South Baltimore about the affordable housing. Tell us, Jay, your thoughts. Jay, you with us?
Yes, hello?
Oh, hi, Jay. Hey.
Yes, how are you? This is my first time calling you guys, and I listen to your show. As far as affordable housing, I live in affordable housing, and I'm in a good community. I've been here for about 7 to 8 years. I do agree with you. It's like 50-50. But some words I heard, and I heard some callers talking in, it's not where you live, it's how you live, because everybody can't afford. And it's like they're raising up taxes and everything like that. It's like the poor is making the rich rich, and the rich is making the poor poor. But these landlords and things like that, they just have to restructure their application as far as putting these tenants in these homes, because everybody don't have it like everybody.
Yeah, and I appreciate your total perspective on that. It's just some people are very concerned, especially when they have children that are living near affordable housing. They're just very concerned about it, and that's why we're having this rezoning thing tonight in Dundalk High School from 6 to 9 p.m. I would encourage you to come.
But the thing about it is that you have people, okay, what about the rich neighborhoods? The rich neighborhoods and all of that. We have the murderers, we have the rapists, we have all of that.
Yeah, those are very good points. I'm going to have to take this next caller, but thank you so much for your call. We appreciate you calling again. Just a minute here. We have Tony in Baltimore talking about Wes Moore's being groomed into the next Obama. Tony, you're on live.
Yes, Oprah Winfrey has been quoted as saying that she wants to make Wes Moore the next Barack Obama.
Yep.
And he is a total fraud. I mean, before he became governor, even before the primary, he had people that knew him, that were related to him, and saying the guy's a total fraud. Everything that he says in his, biography is fiction. So, this is horrible. What's going on is, on top of everything else, the open border, we've got a real mess on our hands.
Well, I appreciate you calling in. We're about to take a break. We're coming at the top of the hour. We're going to be talking about how illegals now have health care in this country, specifically in Maryland. I'm Alexandra Levine, guest hosting for WCBM. We will be right back. Hey, this is Alexandra Levine, guest hosting for WCBM, Talk Radio 680 WCBN. We have on hold with us Barry O'Connell in South Carolina. You are on the show. Hey, Barry.
Alexandra, it is so exciting to speak to Maryland's greatest opera singer.
Oh, you're so sweet. I appreciate that.
Hey, this is fun. Now, I'm tempted to talk about future President West, but I don't want to go down that road. What I'm thinking about is the idea that the Maryland legislature, the Maryland General Assembly, set up this group that gives a seat to a terrorist representative. I mean, that's not right. You know, when we take a look at terrorism around the world, we cannot give in to these people, and we should not start by giving CARE, which is the front for a terrorist group, a seat on our human rights group. It's obscene.
I wholeheartedly agree with you on that. And that's why I testified to remove her. And it was actually Democrats that put the legislation together. It was Delegate Dalia Attar with Delegate Joe Vogel and many others. And, you know, Dalia told me that she even got pushback to even write the bill. And I couldn't believe it because Dalia Attar is a modern Orthodox Jewish woman. She lives in a very modern Orthodox Jewish community area. And she listened to her constituents. Her constituents said, Dalia, you have to get rid of CARE off the Anti-Hate Commission. Dr. Chandri has these horrible anti-Semitic comments that she's been putting on her Facebook and her Twitter, and this is not good and this is inappropriate. So Dalia Attar, kudos to her for listening to the people, and she put this legislation forward, and the fact that they won't vote for it or it may not pass is asinine to me.
I think that she is one of the very best Democratic delegates in Annapolis. She does a fantastic job. She's out in West Baltimore. I lived in her district. I voted for her when she was elected to office, and I support her wholeheartedly. She cares about the people. She always puts people over ideology. She's not one of these people who, you know, votes for gimmicks. She votes for her voters, and her voters do not want a terrorist representative on a state group in Maryland. So I strongly endorse that position. I think we need to support, whether they're Republican or Democrat, when somebody does good, solid work, we should support them. And so I always love Dalia. She does a great job.
I agree with you. And thank you so much, Barry, for the call. I really appreciate that. And
I'm glad to hear you on the air. This is fantastic. You're such an improvement.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. That's very sweet of you. Thank you. I'll sing for you anytime. But yeah, going to what, you know, tackling on to what Barry said, you know, the fact that CARE was even on the Anti-Hate Commission to begin with is asinine. Again, CARE is formed by the Muslim Brotherhood, a known terrorist organization. That is not an opinion, that is a fact. The Muslim Brotherhood was formed by Hamas, a known terrorist organization. That is not an opinion, that is a fact. And I'm 100% Jewish. I'm actually direct descendant of a Prime Minister of Israel, Moshe Sharet, who was the second Prime Minister of Israel, the first foreign minister of Israel, is my relative. So my family literally built Israel. So I take this to heart. And when you have a lot of anti-Semitic groups, anti-hate groups that are standing with CARE, that are standing with the Muslim Brotherhood, with Hamas, and as I mentioned earlier, Hamas was responsible for murdering 1,200 innocent people on October 7th. 31 Americans were murdered, and we have over 136 hostages still under Hamas militant rule in Gaza. And you stand with them? You stand with them. No, this shouldn't be. And I'm very happy that the Democrats stood up and wrote this bill. I'm happy that Republicans like Delegate Chris Tomlinson, he's been on top of this. State Senator Mike McKay has been on top of this. I thank them for their service, and I thank them for pushing that we need to remove CARE, because this is so important. And if we keep having terrorist organizations on an anti-hate commission, guess what? There's going to be more uprisings of anti-Semitic attacks happening all over the place. We're coming back at the top of the hour. We're going to talk to Ken Fitch and Deb Hill, our legal minds, about illegals having health care now. This is Alexandra Levine, guest hosting for WCBM Talk Radio. We'll be right back. Hey everyone, this is Alexandra Levine, guest hosting for WCBM Talk Radio, 680 WCBM. We have with us Ken Fitch and Deb Hill on the hotline, our Legal Minds segment today. They're going to discuss the legislation to let undocumented migrants use Maryland healthcare marketplace to get the House vote. Thanks for coming on today, Ken Fitch and Deb Hill.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Oh, thank you for having us. It's good to hear you. You sound great.
Thanks so much. Well, I understand you guys testified yesterday and last week about this bill. Tell our viewers about that and about that process.
Okay, well, we started out, first of all, we're in a court case, Fitch v. Maryland, and that case is trying to reinstate prescription drug coverage for about 48,000 retirees who paid for it during their working years. And so we were just taken aback when we found out that the state of Maryland wanted to give free prescription drug coverage and health care to undocumented workers.
Right. They threw us off back in 2011 and had it go retroactive to 2018. Say we're going to break the bank. They didn't have the money, but these undocumented, they want to get special funding from the government to keep them and get them insured, then get them prescription drug coverage. Here, we're with state workers. We earned this. We paid for this. And we're American citizens.
So they had Bill SB 705 in the Senate last week, and we went down to testify, to try to get an unfavorable report, so it would not get out of committee. And essentially our argument was, look, you have people, Maryland citizens, United States citizens, who had this coverage, and you took it away. They should be a priority over top of anyone who's not a citizen of this country. And at that hearing, there was only 4 people who testified against that bill, and it was myself, Ken, Howard Killian, and Mary Fry. And we were basically said that we had hatred in our hearts for undocumented workers. That was untrue. Our priority was the state retirees who at this point are reaching 70, 80 years old and won't be able to afford their prescription drug coverage. So then, switching to this week, our bill came up, which was SB 349. SB 349 seeks to grandfather in the retirees that were affected by this elimination. Most of them are in their 70s and 80s. Most of them won't be able to afford the additional costs for this medication. And so, I think we had a rally in the morning.
Big rally.
A very big rally in the morning. And we were able to, and there was over 40 people, state retirees who testified, including the Maryland Trooper Alumni Association, AARP. We even had the unions there. This goes across all political theories, goes across all races, all colors, because this affects just normal American citizens, and these citizens happen to work for the state. And if you cannot see that the state workers should have priority over anyone who broke into this country to get here, then something is really wrong with our government system.
That's why the state worker went with the state for low wages. They knew it, but they knew they had the benefits at the end.
So let me ask you a question, Deb and Ken. We have a lot of people in this country, American citizens. A lot of them are not insured or they can't afford health insurance, but yet they want to provide health insurance to illegals, undocumented people that are here in this country. What say you about that? Why is that happening?
Well, I mean, this is another push towards socialism in this country. It's already here in this state, but it's another push towards that. Government supplies everything, including your health care, and that's not America. I am so in favor of repealing Obamacare or the Affordable Care Act, which essentially has taken away the choice of Americans in determining what health provider they want to use, as well as, when they want to use it. It has gotten to the point now where we have to accept what the government says we need for our health care. And we have to accept that we can't have all types of health care only because the government doesn't want to pay for it. I mean, when did we become this type of society where being individual, which is what Americans pride themselves on, is now been pushed down to the bottom. It's horrific, and people need to rise up and try to change this. One of the issues that we had with SB 705 was that bill specifically was saying that they were trying to find funding to give health care and prescription drug coverage to undocumented illegals.
And what does undocumented mean?
And of course the issue came back to, well, they pay taxes. They work here. They pay taxes. And I'm saying that right now the Maryland General Assembly is perpetrating a criminal activity. I mean, first of all, you take people who broke the law to get here, and then you have people who are hiring them and paying them. Well, it's against the law to hire someone who's not a citizen here without a green card. So obviously if they are working here and they're undocumented, meaning they are illegal, then how can they be paying taxes unless they stole somebody's identity?
Correct. And
so the Maryland General Assembly in its way is almost promoting this criminal activity. Come over here, break in the country, get in here, and then go and work for someone under the table or steal someone's identity in order to be able to pay taxes. How in the world can someone who's undocumented pay taxes?
Correct. And we have
sales tax or whatever.
Correct. And we have House Bill 728, which was sponsored by Delegate Bonnie Cullison. She's a Democrat in Montgomery County, and she debated, and she wants her bill. And if her bill becomes law, the bill would prompt the Maryland Health Benefit Exchange to apply for a federal waiver in order to let undocumented migrants use the exchange. And the exchange would need to submit a report to the General Assembly 6 months before the program is implemented, according to the bill. I mean, this is the same thing that you guys are just talking about. Right. Why is this happening? Why are Democrats from Montgomery County pushing this?
That was a crossover bill.
That was the crossover bill. And essentially, once we started our flack, then all of a sudden this bill was changed to, these undocumented. Well, first of all, let me be clear. This bill does not help anybody other than illegal immigrants. Because you cannot qualify for Medicare or Medicaid or any of the other government programs that are available because you're not a citizen. So this bill is specifically for people who are undocumented. And then, of course, once we started our flack, then all of a sudden they said, they're going to purchase this. They're going to purchase their health coverage in the Maryland Exchange. How are they going to do that? They don't have any money.
Yeah, that's correct. And they said many state retirees are upset with an impending change to their prescription drug coverage. What say you about this, Ken? I know that you're very strong on this topic.
Yeah, I've been in this fight for 6 years. I'm the one that took the state of Maryland to court. Right now, it got dismissed because ACME intervened and went to the Fourth Circuit. They dismissed ACME, said the employees don't have a contract, and then the judge added, neither does retirees. Well, we weren't in the Fourth Circuit. We are now. But AFME had another appeal in their back pocket. If they didn't like that answer, think about this. They've got to answer that the employee does not have rights to that drug coverage when they retire.
That's horrible.
Had another appeal in the back pocket. They could have went to the U.S. Supreme Court, and they didn't.
So this was featured on Maryland Matters, Ken and Deb. So the Maryland General Assembly passed Senate Bill 946 in the 2019 session. This bill provides the following: in the event the outcome of Ken Fitch versus State of Maryland is found in favor of the state, if the court rules in favor of the plaintiffs, retirees keep their current benefits. Can you confirm with that reporting?
No, that is incorrect, and that's part of the disinformation that's being perpetrated here.
Please correct that for the record.
Okay, let's clear it up. Okay, the program that they put in place of the prescription drug coverage for state retirees, that program requires that state retirees pay for their drugs up front, and then the state will reimburse them. Now, at the time of this, right now, as of today, the state doesn't have a program to reimburse anybody for any drugs that they purchase. And the problem with Medicare Part D is, number one, that they don't carry all the drugs. So that would make a retiree have to pay for a full boat for that prescription. So as opposed to the state plan, which they would subsidize Medicare Part D, now they have to pay the full boat, as well as they'll have to pay double the amount because Medicare Part D doesn't have a family plan. So this is what I'm talking about with the socialization of our healthcare system, which has gotten to the point where you have to accept it or you have no health care at all. These retirees, as I said, 70, 80 years old, having cancer, Howard Killian, who testified 705 and on 349, he's on a cancer drug that would cost him $11,000 a month. Who has that on a fixed
That's
income?
insane. That's insane.
Okay. And so this is what we're saying, and yet you're willing to find funding to do this for illegal aliens?
Yeah, and I'll make up the top, or not make up, but I'll add in the topic of COVID, and we only have about a minute. But when COVID hit, there was a lot of elderly people that got COVID, and they ended up in the hospital. They were not allowed to obtain ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, Regeneron, these things that helped people to recover from COVID. But illegal aliens come in here, and they get sick. They bring their COVID, and guess what? They have a package set up with ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine and the monoclonal antibody treatment waiting for them. Why did that happen? Why were they giving help to illegals when we had American citizens that literally died from COVID and they could have used ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine? What says you guys?
All right. Senator Hayes said it.
Yes.
He said it at the end when he rebutted and told he wanted to tell his side at the end after we all testified.
Right. When he said we were full of hate.
He said full of hate. Y'all
say 705. Y'all can listen to the testimony. It's recorded.
It's recorded. He said this are new Americans.
These are new Americans.
New Americans.
Now, these people who did not go through the vetting process, know nothing about our country other than it was a rich country, now they're the new Americans. And that's the answer.
Well, follow up a little bit. We have a few seconds, Ken, on your lawsuit. What's happening with that?
Right now, we just answered the state on the appeal through this Fourth Circuit. We're just waiting for the court now to answer whether they'll actually take the case or we win the case or we're just going to have a hearing. After that, if we don't win, we're heading to the U.S. Supreme Court. Our attorney already got admitted to that. You have to have two attorneys to sponsor you to go. Not any attorney can just walk in the U.S. Supreme Court. You have to be admitted. Well, our attorney's already been admitted. We're ready to rock and roll.
Well, we will be filing this case. Thank you guys so much. We love having you on. Legal Mind, Deb Hill, and her lovely Ken Fitch right there. Thank you guys so much for coming on.
It was a pleasure. Thank you, Alexandra.
You're welcome. We're going to take a quick break. We're coming back up at the bottom of the hour. We have a very different segment called Relationship Experting. We have with a relationship expert. I'm Alexandra Levine, guest hosting for WCBM Talk Radio. We'll be right back. Hey, we're back. I'm Alexandra Levine, guest hosting for WCBM Talk Radio, 680 WCBM. If we just had two amazing guests, Ken Fitch, our legal mind, Deb Hill, talk about, giving illegals health care. Please call into the show. I'm sure you guys all have a bunch of questions about that. 410-922-6680. That's toll free, 1-800-922-6680. I can tell you personally, I'm in the healthcare profession. I don't provide health care to illegals. No way. No way. We have to give health care to we, the American people, we the citizens. Again, I focus on COVID-19 because my grandfather got COVID. I saved my grandfather from COVID. It was a big story in the news. My grandfather's a 98-and-a-half-year-old World War II veteran, and he got COVID, and the doctors would not give him hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin. They wouldn't even give him an antibiotic. And it was just horrific. And it wasn't until I was in Florida and I listened to Governor Ron DeSantis and he talked about the monoclonal antibody treatment Regeneron that I said, Mom, to my mother, I said, Mom, we gotta call the governor. We gotta call the Department of Health and get the monoclonal antibody treatment to Grandpa, which we did, and we were very successful. And I worked with the Department of Health, with Governor Ron DeSantis. I implemented the monoclonal antibody treatment to people with COVID-19, not just in the state of Florida, but in Texas and beyond. And it goes to show we gotta take care of our own. And going back to Tim Fazenbaker, that's what he's about. And that's what he's going to be focusing on tonight when he testifies. It's about taking care of your own. And if we're taking care of illegals before we're taking care of ourselves, that's a problem. That's how socialism creeps in. Why are we taking care of illegals? Why did we provide them ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine when we had Dr. Fauci and others screaming that ivermectin is for horses, that it's an animal dewormer, that it's only good for horses, a parasite dewormer for horses, and hydroxychloroquine doesn't work, even though it was FDA approved 50 years ago. I mean, what the heck? Ivermectin got a Nobel Peace Prize in 2015. I can tell you, I got COVID, very bad COVID, in 2022. January 2022, I was stuck in Texas for a month. And if it wasn't for hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin and the monoclonal antibody treatment, I don't think I'd be alive today. I don't think I'd be alive. But there are people that are suffering. There was people that called me from rehab centers, from VA hospitals, all over Florida with lingering COVID. And they needed that monoclonal antibody. They needed the ivermectin. They needed the hydroxychloroquine. And the doctor said, no, it doesn't work. But give it to the illegals. Give it to the illegals. Put a whole package together for them. The minute they cross in our southern border, you got COVID? You're an illegal? You got COVID? We'll take care of you. Oh yeah, we'll put you in a room. We'll give you your ivermectin. We'll give you your hydroxychloroquine. It is a shame. It is a shame that we are not taking care of our own. It is a shame. Look, my family are survivors from the Holocaust. They came here legally through a sponsor. You had to come in legally through a sponsor. When we have Democratic Congresswoman Veronica Escobar saying at the southern border, saying, welcome to El Paso. It is the new Ellis Island. It is a slap in the face to Holocaust survivors, and it's misinformation. That is not true. El Paso is not the new Ellis Island. And then you have the squad, Congresswoman AOC and Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar. They're saying that detention centers are like concentration camps. Again, a slap in the face to Holocaust survivors. It's not true. You come in illegally, they don't cut your hair off. They don't give you a number. They don't put you in striped pajamas. You get to go in a room. You get to get toothbrush, toothpaste, a blanket. You get to keep the clothes on your back. They don't separate you. I'll educate the young people on the Holocaust. You got on a train. You get off the train. You don't know if you're ever going to see your parents again. It's not the same way here. It's not the same way at all with these detention centers, with these illegals coming in. You get to be with your parents. Your hair stays on, your clothes stay on, you get toothbrush, toothpaste, you get a shower. The Holocaust, you couldn't shower. So this is the divider. This is the misinformation. This is stuff that needs to be told. That's why our southern border needs to be closed. President Trump put in the best policies to procure our freedom. When you have illegals coming into your country, masses of them, millions of them, it is ruining your economy, and it's causing a lot of murders. Remember Kate Steinle? We're waiting for the Senate to pass this Kate Steinle bill, but she was killed by an illegal immigrant who was in and out of prison multiple times in California. That was a big story, a big deal. We have to protect our own. We have to provide health care for our own. That's why this affordable housing is very bad. That's why giving health care to illegals before you help your own is very bad. Again, it's America first, everybody. Whether you like President Trump or not, his policies worked. We got to get back to America first policies. We got to get back to taking care of our own. And you have to scream it to your lawmakers. You have to scream it to them and say, we are suffering here. We Americans, legal citizens of this country, we are suffering. Why are the illegals doing better than us? Why are the illegals taking all of our jobs? I have friends that are trying to obtain jobs and they can't. But illegals will take their jobs from them. They'll take it for $10 an hour, $15 an hour. I'm Alexandra Levine, guest hosting for WCBM. I'll be right back. Hey, we're back. I'm Alexandra Levine, guest hosting for WCBM Talk Radio 680. So we talked about local politics. We talked about national politics. We talked about international politics. Now we're gearing to something else. Relationships. We have Jacqueline Levine on the call. She's a relationship expert, has a master's level clinician degree in marriage and family and psychology. Jacqueline Levine, thank you so much for joining the show this morning.
Hey, Alexandra. How are you?
Great. So, Jacqueline, you are in Sarasota, Florida right now. Tell us about your background.
So I went to undergrad at American, and I have my master's from a school called Argosy in Tampa. It's a master's in psychology with a specialization in marriage and family therapy. I've been counseling for almost 2 decades with that specialization in working with couples and families.
So during COVID, we were all locked down for 2 years, 3 years in some places, and online dating became a big hit. What is your opinion of online dating, and how can we get the young people out of their house, stop making digital babies, as my mother says, and go out and meet other young people?
So personally, I love online dating. I actually met my husband over 10 years ago on an online dating app. But to your point, we're doing it wrong nowadays. And what the problem is that, we meet these people online and we don't get offline. And I think, having these endless text conversations before we even meet is the number one problem. So I really think that women can actually take control of this, and men, you can listen also. For a woman, when a man starts texting you, you shouldn't be telling him your whole life story via text. You should keep things very short and wait for him to ask you out. If he wants to learn more about you, he needs to do that face to face on a date.
So I discovered you on your Instagram post about Valentine's Day. I thought it was brilliant because you talked about how men and women should not be mind readers. Can you kind of emphasize that? And as you know, we're going into holidays, like with the Jewish community, we're going into Purim, and then we're going into Easter, and we're going into Passover. So talk a little bit about that Instagram post and talk about the future of us men and women. We shouldn't be mind readers.
Yeah, so basically the post was about how people really hate Valentine's Day, and, basically the reason they hate it is because men and women still to this day in 2024, where we're at the peak of communication, do not know how to communicate with each other. And a problem I see often is women, we want a man to read our minds, and that is just never going to happen. Men are not mind readers, and also men and women think very differently. They don't think alike whatsoever. But here's the other kicker. A lot of women don't even know what they want. They just don't know what they want. They haven't even thought about it. So they're expecting a man to read their mind, figure out what they want, but they don't even know what they want. And, that just causes so many problems. So, I would say for women out there, you really need to be clear about what you are looking for from a man in a relationship. And, even presence-wise, you need to figure out what your love language is and what appeals to you. And then you need to communicate that with your partner. You cannot expect them to read your mind. Don't drop hints. That never works. You need to communicate, but also you need to communicate in a way where they will listen. And that really comprises of being nice, being gentle, no nagging, no scorekeeping, no resentment. If you want your partner to do what you want him to do, you need to ask in a non-threatening way, and you need to communicate properly.
So there's this topic of gold digger. So I've talked to a lot of guys ages 25 to 35, and the biggest thing now is they're afraid to let the woman know what they make for a living. Sometimes they dummy down how they look, or instead of them pulling up with their Ferrari, they'll borrow their dad's old jalopy because they don't want to give the impression that they do well, and they don't want to take women to the nicest restaurant because they're afraid they're going to order the most expensive item on the menu. How can we get the men off that mindset that every time they go out with a girl, she's just after him for money?
Well, honestly, Alexandra, if a man has this mindset and they're afraid of a gold digger and they're afraid that she's going to order the surf and turf at dinner, the guys really should not be taking any girls out. If you are afraid that a woman is going to take all your money, you probably don't have enough money to support a woman. So if that's your mindset, you need to go back to work, you need to get a side hustle, a second job, and you need to make more money. Because a man's role is to take care of a woman. You can't even pay for a meal if this concerns you. You're not ready to date, and you're definitely not ready for marriage.
So what is your advice to women that the minute they go on their first or second date, they're already talking about marriage, they're already talking about kids? And
this is very scary for a man. I wouldn't recommend that. You know, as a female, you need to keep your options open. You know, it's very scary for a man, especially on a first or second date, to hear that a woman, you know, wants to get married, because in their mind, that woman isn't really even seeing them. The woman's just looking for a slot to fill. So as a woman, you know, that can be your goal, but you really shouldn't be telling men that. You should be, you know, going on dates and learning about them and, you know, trying to figure out if this person meets, you know, all your criteria. And if they don't, you need to meet somebody else that does. But if you're on a date and you're telling a man the first or second date you're looking for marriage, that's going to scare them off.
And that goes to your point of saying that women don't need to tell a man everything that's on their mind. And I agree with you on that. And and the next question is, you know, what's the biggest mistake that young couples make when they start dating? What would you say is the biggest mistakes?
The biggest mistake? Well, I think it's different for men and for women. You know, for women, to your point, I think that we talk too much and we try to make a man like our everything, and then we start talking to him like he's our therapist or our best girlfriend, and that just makes the relationship go sideways. I think for women, you know, you need to have a girlfriend. If you need a therapist, you need to have a therapist. Don't treat your man as your best friend, because they don't want to hear your gripes and whatnot. You know, a man communicates differently than a woman. But for men, you also have to understand that women aren't problem solvers like men are. Women sometimes just need to vent about their day. So men need to get a little bit better about just listening, not trying to jump and solve the problems or criticize her. So I think those two communication styles, you know, really need to change with both men and women, and they'll have a better time dating.
And in your expertise, what is the key to a successful marriage?
I think the key to a successful marriage is continuing to date your spouse. You know, a lot of people think that marriage is the finish line, but marriage is just the beginning. And I think, you know, men really need to hear this, because sometimes men feel like, okay, well, I courted her and I took her out on all these dates and I was on my best behavior during the courting phase and now we're married. You know, I don't have to be romantic anymore. And I think that becomes a big problem. You need to continue to date your spouse. If you have kids, especially, you know, you need to carve out time during the week where you guys are just alone and can be together. As a woman, you need to, you know, continue to dress up for your spouse. Don't let yourself go. Like, continue to be sexy. And the other important thing, and people don't like to talk about it, but you need to have a sexual relationship with your spouse that keeps a marriage passionate, and men really need that in a marriage, and I don't think women understand that, but men need that.
So you said that you met your husband on online dating. There was a huge Netflix show called Jewish Matchmaking with this renowned modern Orthodox Jewish woman, or actually she's actually considered Chabad. She's a little bit more than modern Orthodox. I forget her name off the top of my head. But she's a renowned matchmaker. She came to Maryland. She's actually coming to your area March 5th at Michael's on East in Sarasota, Florida. Do you believe in the concept of matchmakers? Do you think that it's worth it to go see this woman at Michael's on East March 5th? And what is your message for that?
I think a matchmaker is a great idea, you know, because when you have that layer of a matchmaker, she's really looking out for your best interest and the men's best interest also. And, you know, matchmaking was very big, you know, a couple hundred years ago, and I think it's a really awesome concept. I mean, there's places in the world that still do matchmaking, and I think marriages turn out better when you have a matchmaker, and the reason for that is you have somebody that's looking at it from another perspective. You know, people think that you're just going to fall in love with somebody and then you're going to live happily ever after, but that's not a good foundation for a marriage. A good foundation for a marriage is, you know, common values, things in common, respect. And if you have a matchmaker helping to pair you off with somebody that meets your criteria, I think it's going to make a better relationship in the long run.
So, Jacqueline, what is your main message to young couples or even divorced couples, ages 25 to, let's say, 40, that, are still kind of nervous? They don't really know how to date anymore because of COVID, or they're trying to, find themselves again. What is your message to them?
I think before they ever get started dating again, they need to take some time off of dating and, learn how to date, number one, learn about themselves. More importantly, become the person that they would want to date. And I think the best way to do this is, to read books on the subject. I am developing a course right now. You can follow me at, on Instagram at Jacqueline.Leah, JACQUELYN, _LEAH. So, enrolling in courses like that, I think is going to do a lot, just because sometimes when you're in it, you just don't realize, the mistakes that you're making, and you really need to be 100% with yourself and 100% where you need to be before you find that perfect match.
I wholeheartedly agree with you, and I think this was such a great segment. Thank you so much, Jacqueline, for coming on. Where can we follow you again?
Instagram at Jacqueline.Leah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And
all right, thank you.
Thank you. And, that was such a great segment. If you are one of those men or those women that met their spouse online or met through a matchmaker, or you really love what Jacqueline had to say, or you want to make a comment, please call in at 410-922-6680, toll-free number 1-800-922-6680. And I agree wholeheartedly with her. And I know in the past when I've gone on dates, sometimes I may talk a lot about myself, and sometimes it's a turn off, sometimes it's a turn on. It happens. But I agree with her that women sometimes, they don't need to tell a man everything that's on their mind. And a man should not have this, wall when he goes and meets a woman. He shouldn't automatically think that the woman is a gold digger because she likes to wear jewelry or she likes to get her hair done or her nails done. I'm one of those people. I do get my hair done every week. I do get my nails done once a month. That's just me. A man shouldn't be nervous. Oh my God, you're going to the hairdressers again? Oh my God, didn't you just have your nails done? No, they should appreciate the fact that the woman wants to look good for them. And there are some women out there that don't get their hair done every week, that don't get their nails done, and they just like to wear jeans and a t-shirt, and there's nothing wrong with that either. And I really feel that the online dating, what that does in the beginning, yes, it's good because you're getting to know that person, but I think after a couple weeks when you're online dating, that's when you should feel comfortable to meet the person, because a person is very different in person than behind a computer. Also, pictures of people look different online. I know a lot of guys that look better in person than they do in their pictures, or there's some guys that take pictures from 20 years ago and put them online, and then you see them in person and they're not the same. Sometimes guys lie about their height. I remember back in the day I was on a date and the guy said he was 6'2", and turned out he was 5'8". So that was a lot of fun. Or the guy said I'm, 200 pounds of solid muscle, and he was 240 pounds of, a little bit beefier. It wasn't really muscle. It was kind of, it was a little bit on the heavy side. So, be honest and upfront, but the whole point is, you want to get away from staying behind that computer, and you want to get out and mix and mingle. And I'm all about, going to singles events. I'm all about, putting on singles, what we call singles dances. My parents met actually at a singles dance almost 50 years ago. We actually have a caller, John in Columbia. He's been married for 43 years. You're on the show with us. Hey, John.
Yes, you betcha. So, you got Pepe Le Pew on the phone here. I did not meet my bride on the internet, although of our 6 kids, 3 are married, and one of the couple did meet on the internet and got nothing. It's great. I don't care how you meet. But the thing that the therapist or whoever that was,
relationship expert,
was something about you got to work on yourself. Like before you're married, you got to work on becoming a better person, becoming who you want to be, or something along that line. And in my mind, that's kind of the key to marriage, is helping each other, like a couple of drunks, propping each other up, helping each other along, overcoming each other's weaknesses and strengths, and many cycles of repentance and forgiveness over and over again. It makes you a better person and a much happier couple.
Well,
I'm telling you right now, honey, John and Angela, Hollywood actors want to play us in the movies.
Oh, well, thank you so much for that insight. I'm so happy for that. I'm so happy that your marriage is successful. I'm Alexandra Levine, guest host for WCBM. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. Hey, we're back. It's Alexandra Levine guest hosting for WCBM. This has just been a great 3 hours. We talked a lot. First, we talked about President Trump and how unfortunately, they're trying to remove him from the ballot in Illinois. Then we talked about, Mitch McConnell stepping down as the Senate Minority Leader who can fill in his spot. Then we talked with elected official Tim Fazenbaker about affordable housing. Before that, we talked with Richard Levine, a financial expert, about finances and about lowering the inflation. Then we talked at the top of the hour at 11 with Ken Fitch and Deb Hill about giving illegals health care. And then we just finished off with an expert relationship specialist, Jacqueline Levin, down in Florida, talking about relationships. Like she said, she met her husband online, but that's not the only way to meet people. My parents actually met at Bender JCC almost 50 years ago at a dance. That's something that I kind of want to bring back, is dances for young singles, whether you're Jewish, non-Jewish, it doesn't matter. We all need to meet our spouse now. We all need to get married. It's very, very, very important. And again, there's so much criteria that we need to really focus on, and we really need to hone in on for our future. This is about our children. Again, bringing back America First values is very, very important. Removing care from the Anti-Hate Commission, combating anti-Semitism, combating the persecution of Christians and other minorities. That's something that I'm extremely passionate about. And to be honest with you, I thank my Israeli friends. They're 7 hours ahead of us. Am Yisrael Chai. May the people of Israel live, for listening, because they're always listening. They're listening and they want to know what America is doing for them, how we are working with our biggest ally, Israel, how we are helping them. I have personally written resolutions for different central committees all over the state of Maryland, and I work with legislators in Annapolis, on Capitol Hill, and in the state of Florida. And the resolutions are so important because it's making a statement that we support Israel. We condemn Hamas. We condemn a terrorist organization. We condemn a terrorist regime. And that's what we need to focus on. And again, the U.S. Senate, they passed a bill, $95 billion going to Ukraine, Israel, Taiwan. It's going back to the House. The House is very upset. The House of Representatives is very upset about it because there's no funding for the border wall. And they're tired of giving a bunch of money to Ukraine. They really are. We need to take care of our own. And that is basically what the segment was about. The 3 hour segment was taking care of our own, putting America First policies into place, and also stepping it up. I was with Mark Levin at CPAC Shabbat, and he said, we as Americans need to step it up. We cannot sit back and complain. We cannot sit back and not do anything. We can't just go on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and YouTube and complain about what's going on in our country. We have voices. We have phones. We have mic. We have money. We have the power. Not them. They are a minority. Remember that. They are the minority trying to be the majority. The squad is the minority trying to be the majority. Affordable housing is a minority decision. Hashtag Free Palestine, minority decision. These are minority decisions that are trying to tell you that this is the majority, but that is not the way of life, and that is not what the majority of the American people think, feel, and believe. That's why they put President Trump in power. That's why President Trump was the president in 2016, because he said what the people were thinking and feeling, and he continues to do that. Mark Levin at CPAC Shabbat, he said what the people are thinking and feeling. And we have to be like a Mark Levin. We have to put our voices out there. We need to step up. We need to do rallies. We need to do events. We need to support President Trump and his America First policies. Like I said, regardless if you like the man or not, his policies worked. We have to support our elected officials that stand with us. We have to fight. Fight for our freedoms, because our freedoms are under attack. We do not want this to be a socialist nation. Remember what President Trump said. Under no circumstances will America ever be a socialist nation. We have the power to make it so it isn't a socialist nation. And, one thing I didn't ask Jacqueline is, what happens with political differences in couples? If you're one of those couples like Mary Madeline and James Carville, where you have a Republican and a Democrat in the household, how does that work? How does that work? Call in. We have a couple minutes left. 410-922-6680 or 1-800-922-6680. If you're one of those couples where the wife is a Republican, the husband's a Democrat, or vice versa, how does that work in your household? I'm very curious because I'm very fortunate. I have Republicans in my family. We don't really fight, pretty much agree on everything. But there's other families out there, they have a mix. They have Democrats, independents, Republicans in their family. And I've heard of stories where the families don't even talk because of political differences. And my mother always said, you can yell, scream, curse at your mom and your dad, but they'll love you no matter what. They will love you no matter what because it's family. You really shouldn't turn your back on your family, even if you don't believe in the same political, if you're not on the same political wavelength, or the same political idea, or you don't have the same political ideology with each other. That's not good. Nowadays, we have to keep our family intact. Nowadays, it's about going back to your Judeo-Christian values, but also it's about family in general. This has been a wonderful 3 hours. Again, I'm Alexandra Levine, guest hosting for WCBM. And I just want to make the point that I'm so happy that you listened. Thank you for listening. And I know why you listened. And I know why you learned. Because you are no idiot.